General.
Here we come. Okay, we got you. There you go. You're back.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
So, in 1947, a map was made about San Francisco's Chinatown. The map was the discovery of an estate that I purchased when Marty and I opened the store back in 2003. As a result, we published a book that is the result of this map, and it deciphers the map maker, a San Franciscan, and his 7 maps, of which this is his 4th. The book is called Gold Mountain Big City. It's published by Cameron Press out of Petaluma, 160 pages, and it received news and noteworthy visually by the New York Times, so it got a nice nod. Here's our title, Gold Mountain Big City, from where we adapted. And I'm going to sit here for a second just to kind of give an outline. Many of you have some incredible academic hobby in maps, and many of you have or will be writing books. This I almost can be assured of. The collection for us came about as a purchase of maps. It came with a set of photographs, which turned out to be the research for the maps. The maps were, some of them were hand colored by us at a certain time, and eventually the photos were developed from an analog 40mm negative into digital forms. It's 3,500 photos that are on our website and available for viewing. It's predominantly San Francisco, although also Seattle and some, Denver as well. The map was finalized as a map in about 2016, and we produced it as a lithograph for sale at our store. Around that time, it became apparent to me that the photographs we had were entirely referenced for creating these maps. And the Chinatown map I did initially because it was very cryptic and unfamiliar to me, but a part of San Francisco history that is something that I had grown up with and seen. The map was colorful and vibrant and filled with iconography. Here it is. The book about the map, which has just come out, has a folding edition of this map in the back for the viewer and the reader to go along with it. And this map I chose, it is the title of San Francisco's Chinatown and its Environs, a scrapbook map. Scrapbooking would have been, as we visualize it, cutting things out. The artwork would have been done in full scale. These little drawings of people and things would have been as much as 12 or 15 inches tall, and then reduced photolithographically. This would have been the most contemporary and modern of processes for the middle of the 20th century, and we see this map is very much a mid-20th century map. Our map maker is reviewed in chapter 1 of the book, and his name was Kenneth Cathcart. He lived in the Montgomery block, eventually one known as the Monkey Block, an artist-filled office space and site of the present current Transamerica Pyramid. Cathcart was from the South, moved through Denver and Seattle to arrive in San Francisco in 1937 at the age of 35 years old. He immersed himself in San Francisco history and soon became an aficionado and somewhat of an expert, studying it, working for B.S. Fong and the Chinatown 6 companies, as well as the LFK, Louis Fong Hong, Sui Sun societies. Essentially, these are family associations in the promotion of Chinatown at the time of the Second Sino-Japanese War, a war in Manchuria where Japan has invaded prior to the beginning of the Second World War for the Americans. This was a fundraising process that put Cathcart into life on the streets in Chinatown. He also was exploring around the areas in which he was familiar, and he would definitely see local young businessmen like the Jim Schein kids, but also more significant players in the community like the newspapermen Chinhua Li of the China Digest, or Stidger and Stidger, the well-known immigration lawyers who in fact had their offices in the Montgomery block. The Monkey Block was well known, built in 1854 as the first fireproof building in San Francisco. It's an important structure then and to us now still historically. By the mid-1930s, it was filled with as many as 75 WPA-supported artists working with subsidies in the trades of printmaking, art. People like Robert Stackpole and Dorothea Lange, people like Don Kingman, all had offices here, as did Cathcart. His association with B.S. Fong and Stidger got him Suite 428 in this building. He lived here till 1958 when it was torn down to make way for a parking lot, which was speculative for the site of the pyramid 20 years later. His proximity and interest in history showed him the 1885 Chinatown map, a map created by the Special Committee of the Board of Supervisors to document land use within a ghetto, a single ethnic minority required to live within the borders of this map, and the color code dictating the land uses and showing that. Nothing on the map is illegal, but everything is immoral. This map defined Chinese American diaspora for many, many years, and ultimately was a selective exclusionary map to justify the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 in California. This map was made in 85, a few years later. Other maps then would follow about Chinatown, celebrating its growth and expansion, and ultimately in 1939, with the growth of the GGIE, the fair in the middle of the bay, Ethel Chung, Cathcart would have seen a map like this or a map like this. This is the guide map, official map to the GGIE in the middle of the bay on Treasure Island. This is a tamed down version of Ruth Taylor White. Ruth Taylor was the most significant illustrator in the country at the time, a Californian who had the top floor of the Call building, the 18th floor of what is known as the Call Central Tower. Now it still exists. And she was the most highly paid illustrator in the country. By this time working for 20 years, creating such 20th century illustrated maps. Cathcart was influenced by this and ultimately, after the war, created 3 maps prior to the Chinatown map. 1, the downtown San Francisco map, 2, the Bay Area map and Bay Area history, and 3, a sketch of map of California, early California history, and the Motherlode, Gold Country history. This, by the way, is the next book, so I'll be doing a book on this map that'll come out in the next 18 months or so by Cameron Press as well. There's an interesting piece on the 2 parts of California history. Cathcart's 4th map was the Chinatown map. And this map is an incredible map of the Chinese American diaspora, as well as the Barbary Coast. Proximity, Cathcart lived in the monkey block in the middle of this map. With that, right, here's Edward Norton. There's the monkey block right there. He lived in the middle of this, and the Barbary Coast is part of that history, and we see the influence of that. The outer second chapter of the book has a typo in its start, which is a shame, the only typo in the book, but it breaks down the grid of the map and how we go about articulating all of the icons within the map. Each icon is a story, and each story is something we would consider Chinatown 101, an understanding of the origins of Chinese American culture, as well as the current and contemporary political environment of Chinatown in the 1940s, a new post-exclusion, post-Chinese Exclusion Act period. The outer border, specifically focusing on the Chinese American immigrant experience from 1847 to 1947, everything from the creation of the newly elected Democratic Republic of China and the falling Manchu Empire. We also see Chinese contribution to the general Chinatown. Cathcart is making use of his own works, his own photographs. Here we see the corner of Commercial and Grant Avenue, emulating a Sidham emulation from his book on Chinatown from 1935, with the same characters well articulated in the photograph as well as Sidham image, and then Cathcart's rendering of the same location in the lower left corner of the map. His attempt at honesty and integrity was also slanted by his Western eye and being asked to promote that which would appeal to the Western visitor. The map is an attempt to promote Chinatown after the war. The inner grid is Chinatown and the Barbary Coast stories in its moment. It carries everything from iconography of kites to the background photographs which he used to create his imagery on the map, which we have as the original icons and our PDFs within the book. So we get to use the artist's own work to describe himself. Here we see Benny Bufano in the Sun Yat-sen statue, and here we have a photograph done by Cathcart of Bufano looking at the statue in real time. So these are very, very fun contributions. things like Emperor Norton. And the book really is trying to cover and explain all of this imagery, which ranges from contemporary to back to the 1840s. And I kind of ripped through it because what we have is everything from the underworld to the businesses, and his own literary influences, Chinatown, the Barbary Coast, the first books in California. He was a historian. So the book is a study and a history of the Barbary Coast and Chinatown. It's a good book. I hope you'll see it. I hope you'll find it. It's available both at Shine and Shine online, as well as
Amazon.
Amazon and every other vendor in the country. It's a national distributor, and it's about maps and map makers in San Francisco. It's not the old school stuff I was raised doing. It's mid-20th century stuff, and it's something new.
Jim, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Jim and I have presented before an exhibit on San Francisco, and thank you. Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you very much, Jim. It appears that this gentleman is certainly of the same level of importance in those types of maps as Joe Mora. And I'm glad you have brought him into the fold, and it's a significant contribution because I don't think many people knew about this.
I thank you. I couldn't agree more. That's an absolute accurate comparison. Mora is well known and beloved and an incredible talent, but he is incredibly well known. Cathcart is absolutely unknown. I don't know what success he saw in his life, but I do find what he created to be quite good, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I have. It's been a good process.
It's a great book. I have it, and
I have 3.
Yeah.
Jim told me to buy 3.
I hope we can bring him into prominence. I think that this has been a good stab at it, and we'll keep doing it, maybe in the Rumsey Center also.
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much. Great to be here.
Thanks, Jim.